I love metaphysical Bible interpretation, which is, I think, one of the gifts, probably the primary gift that the unity movement has given to the world. And metaphysical Bible interpretation is not about literal. We don't sit here and ponder, did it or didn't happen? Did it or didn't it happen? We don't try to figure out the time frame of the people and what was happening then and what was it about. That can be good information at times. But metaphysical Bible interpretation takes the places and the people and the events, and it all makes it about you, your spiritual evolution. And each character in the story represents a different aspect of ourselves. So literally, every Bible story is the story of your life for you to glean out of it what is here for you today. And that same story 10 years ago can have very different meaning from today or from 10 years from now. It's always, that's what makes the Bible stories to me so mystical and metaphysical interpretation so beautiful, because it is ever growing, ever expanding, always supporting us on our journey. Now, the way that we do this and we look at this is called liberation theology. Metaphysical Bible interpretation lines up with liberation theology, meaning we don't look at the story for where's the power. We look at the stories beginning with where's the suffering, where's the disconnect from God happening, and how do we use the story to evolve, to reconnect. It's a story, the stories are about liberation, freedom. And one of the most profound stories that we're going to be looking at today and next week is the story of Exodus. One of my favorite liberation stories. It is the liberation story in the Bible. It's the story of Moses and his people. We probably all watched it around Easter for many, many years. But let me recap the story. Moses is actually born a Jew. But Pharaoh is a new king, and he feels very threatened by the Jewish people. He wants everyone to be like him. He wants everyone to worship like him. He wants everything to be just this way. And the Jews were not the way that he wanted them to be. So he decreed that all firstborn boys and families were to be killed. So Moses is born, and his parents are hiding Moses, but Moses is growing up, and as babies do, gets louder and louder and louder. And so they know that Moses is going to be discovered, and he's going to be killed, and his parents are devastated. So they put him in a basket, and they send him down the river in hopes that he will live and he will find freedom. Well, as the story goes, Pharaoh's family itself picks the baby up out of the river. And so Moses is raised as an Egyptian. Now, even now, this story can begin to become about you. You are born in perfect innocence. You are born totally connected to the divine, to the wholeness and the beauty. The perfection of being is right there inside of you. You have no past, you have no future. You're pure joy. But over time, the Pharaoh, the ways of the world, the fear begins to infiltrate inside of you. And you begin to become, as many of you know, Don Miguel Ruiz, domesticated. Right? You get sent down the river and disconnected from your true power, who you truly are. But it never leaves you. It never leaves you. And this is true for Moses. Because although Moses doesn't even know that he's a Jew, it lives inside of him. And so as he becomes older, as the story goes, he's seeing a Jewish man being beaten by soldiers. And he's so upset by this that he gets in and he fights. And as it says, Moses kills one of the soldiers. Well, now he's in trouble. So he takes off a running. He takes off to escape. And he finds himself by a well. And it says 7 sisters come by. That's an interesting, I don't know why that's just really interesting. Just 7 sisters, la, 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 la. There's Moses. They meet up. And the 7 sisters are also getting hassled by someone. And again, something rises up in Moses, and he defends these women. They bring him home. He ends up marrying one of them. And he ends up hiding out in his father-in-law's place, and he becomes a shepherd. He just becomes an average person, hanging out, but he's free. He's got this freedom, this sense of, okay, this is my life. He's still in hiding because he killed someone, but he's free in this family. And while he's out there, one day, a burning bush appears. We know the story. And the burning bush says, which is God, it says, hey, Moses. And it says, I need you to go to Egypt and set my people free. Now, Moses does what probably you might do. When divine inspiration calls you, when something inside you says, this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to move beyond my life. I'm here to create something wonderful. I'm here to do a wonderful thing. I hear it. I can feel it inside of me. That's what the burning bush kind of represents. Did he see a burning bush or not? I don't know. It was this intuitive awakening. I need to do something with my life. And what does Moses say to the burning bush? Oh, no. Nope, not me. Right? Isn't that our response? I can't do that. I don't have the right degree. I'm too much of this. I'm not enough of that. We start arguing with the divine calling. We start telling it why it can't be us. Now, I don't know if you know this, but it is said Moses had a stuttering problem. So here Moses, who stutters, is being asked to use his voice. Isn't that interesting? Either God's a cruel God or a brilliant God. Let's go with brilliant for a minute. The very place where our wound is, the very place where you feel most vulnerable, is the access point for God. Be with that. Breathe that in. The very place where you feel so vulnerable is the place that you can open up to a brand new self. God goes through the weirdest windows sometimes when we're called. Well, Moses is still into arguing. And so he says to God, send my brother Aaron. He's better than me. He can talk. He's a good speaker. The brother Aaron, metaphysically, represents the thoughts next door in our mind, the other thoughts, the thoughts in us that sort of kind of dumb down the idea or talk us out of it or push it away and push it onto someone else. But God's not having it. And God's not having it with you. You don't get to pass your divine calling onto your brother or sister because it's yours. And so Moses says, all right, who do I say send me? You're going to send me to Pharaoh the king and tell him to send these people. What am I going to say? And the magical words, he says, tell him that I am that I am sent you. Confusing. I am that I am sent you. I am that I am is an absolute perfect equation that lives throughout all time. It is literally encoded with freedom. It is literally encoded with all that you need to live your most magnificent life. I am that, comma, I am. I am that magnificent life. I am that pure power. I am that wholeness and that vitality. That is who I am. And that magical moment, that's God saying, who are you going to serve? Are you going to serve the truth of who you are? Or are you going to keep defining yourself as broken and not enough and not good enough and trying to fit into a world that isn't ever going to feed you and bring out the best in you? Are you going to align yourself with the God in you? Breathe that in, because that's the question for you today. Are you going to align yourself with your magnificence, whatever that looks like, wherever it takes you? I am that I am. So as the story goes, Moses goes, and he does it, and he goes to Pharaoh, and hey, Pharaoh, could you set my people free? You know, so I imagine he wasn't that strong in conviction in the beginning. Now, Pharaoh, this guy's making, he's making bank off of the slaves. He's making, he's solid with keeping the Israelites hostage and keeping them slaves. So he's not interested in, what's he going to say? Oh, okay, Moses, sure. Break down my whole kingdom just because you're asking. That's not going to happen. Same inside you. That addiction, that false belief, that ridiculous idea you have about yourself that you're not good enough. It's got a stronghold. It's been feeding off you for a while. It's not going to just disappear because you ask it to. It requires something more to rise up. That's the first step. As the story goes, God showing up to support Moses in every step. And it says that there are 10 plagues that happen upon Egypt. Frogs, and there's frogs in Naples too, so I think we're under a plague here, by the way. I found myself wondering about that as I was studying this. Like, frogs. And they get worse, and they get worse, and they get worse. And you can find, your human mind can go, God is mean. God is wiping out all these bad people and harming things. That's the God that we all sort of got, didn't we? But that's not it. If you don't follow the divine calling, if you don't do what you're here to do, the parts of you that are afraid, it will get harder and harder and harder. You know what it's like. You know when that relationship was over 20 years ago, but you stayed an extra 10? And that 10, it got harder, and it got harder, and it got harder, until finally, it broke. All the while, you were building the tension and the energy that you needed to finally break free. That's what the story represents. God isn't going to leave you alone. And if you answer the call the first time, it's going to be easy. But if you don't, it's going to get a little more difficult, And life is going to get a little bit harder to support you in creating enough contrast so that when you finally go, all right, I'll do it, all of that energy is there to support you in the liftoff, right? So that's what's happening here. Moses, hey, set my people free. Nope. Okay, hey, set my people free. Nope. Does it? And each time it's getting harder on Pharaoh. Pharaoh metaphysically represents fear. The fear that has you trapped. That's what you're working against. You say to the fear, let me go. It says no. But we keep coming back. We keep building our power over and over until the 10th time when finally the fear is beaten down. And Moses is building his energy. By the 10th time, he can walk in and go, set my people free. And there's conviction, and there's power, and there's certainty. And Pharaoh says, okay. And all the Israelites start leaving Egypt, freedom. They're free for the first time in generations of people who have been slaves. Generations of people who have been living under thought systems that do not support your freedom or your oneness with God. That's you. Take a breath. I'm talking about you. Generations of people trapped inside. It's okay. Unity's here. I'm your Moses. Come on. Moses, by the way, metaphysically represents drawing out. So you have a Moses in you. There is something in you that is saying that part. It's being called, and it's like, hey, draw out of the fear. Draw out of the false belief. Draw out of this way of living that isn't serving you. So that's what's happening. And so they're all going, and there's so much energy. It's so powerful that what happens? The sea itself parts. It's so magnificent, the energy, that nothing will stop you. The sea itself will part. The mountain will crumble. Miracles happen when you're so in alignment with your freedom and where you're going. But what does fear do? Even when it's beaten down, it changes its mind. And in the story, he starts chasing. This Pharaoh's been beaten down 10 times. And he lets them go, and then he starts chasing them again. Isn't that interesting? Fear's powerful. I think fear deserves a pause. It deserves, don't make yourself wrong about it. There's a lot of energy in there. And it doesn't die easily, but it's the right work. And so here are all of the Israelites, which represent illumined thoughts, the connection with Christ, with God. And they're moving in the direction of their freedom. The sea parts, they get to the other side, and the water closes down, and the fear can't make it across. So the Israelites are free. So let's look at the groups of people. So the Egyptians, nothing wrong with Egyptians, but in the story, it represents the fearful thoughts, the trapment, the parts that are stuck, all your power stuck in these stories and these made-up things that you're supposed to be and have to do and all those things. Those are trapped energy. When freedom rings and it looks like a whole people are being washed out and killed, what's being washed out of you is all that which has been created out of fear. You don't lose anything. Your true essence, your true power makes it to the other side. You will never die. You will never be eliminated. The truth and the beauty and the magnificence of you will always win. But all of the things you made out of fear, all the castles you built in sand, they must crash down. All the things you become attached to and identified as who you are, they must come crashing down. That's what happens in this world so that we can keep returning back to ourselves. That's what we're here to do at Unity of Naples. You're in a new, I wasn't kidding. I was like, I am Moses here. I am going, we're going to a new land. Come on with me. I know you don't know me, but trust me. It's good. It's good. And as an individual, we'll feel this. Oh my God, there are times when being trapped is at least familiar, right? It's not comfortable and I don't like it, but I at least know what it is. And when we're called to freedom, we're called to something new. We're called to shed all that we thought we were and to become naked and vulnerable and open as we move into the birthing of a new self. This happens to us individually, and this is happening to us collectively during this time. It's magnificent. It's what you're here for, because you are here to remember who you are and become who you're here to be so you can do what is inside of you to do. It's a perfect, simple equation. But to do that, we have to shed all of the stuff that we've been carrying. But God is greater. And the Moses inside of you knows what to do. It knows how to draw you out. It knows how to lead. So this week, I want you to get related to the Moses in you. And I want you to get related to the I am that. I am the divine. I am the power of the universe. I want you to fill yourself up with so much of it that you're ready for next week's talk. Because next week, we go into the wilderness. Yeah, you don't want to miss that. Because let me tell you something. I brought you to the wilderness. You don't come back, you ain't going to know how to get out. And that's your problem. I can only do so much. All right, take a breath. Let's pray here. Before you turn within, I'm going to ask our prayer chaplains to stand and hold the space. These people have studied hard and they work for us. They're around the room. I stand on their shoulders as I speak this prayer. And they're here for you. You don't ever have to leave with anything heavy on your heart. These people pray, and they continue to do their work of greater and greater freedom so they can reach their hand out to you and give you that gift when you need it. So take a breath, turn within. Open your hands if you can. Lift your chin up, opening your heart. In this moment, I speak the word freedom as the natural state of being that God is. God is freedom. There is no bondage in God. There is no separation in God. There's pure freedom, pure life. And guess what? I'm made of that. I am made of the purity, the life, the power, and the presence of God. And I don't stand alone as that. We meet in the agreement of our magnificence today. We meet in the agreement that I am that. I am. I am that presence of God. Say, I am. I am that freedom of God. I am the love of God. I am the truth and the power of God. I am the purpose and the joy of God. I am, I am, I am, I am. Take a breath. And I know that we are guided. In this upcoming week, Moses, awaken within us. Draw us out of the areas where we have been trapped. Draw out the power that has been hiding in the stories and the false beliefs. Draw it out this week. Moses, awaken within our minds, within our hearts, and begin to shake us loose so that we may experience ourselves as the divine, living in the freedom that has always been ours. Take a breath. So grateful for the fulfillment of this prayer. I release it, I let it be, and so it is. Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you.